Hey, I'm Al, and today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the College of Swords Bard. Bards of the College of Swords are called Blades, and they entertain through daring feats of weapon prowess. Blades perform stunts such as sword swallowing, knife throwing, and juggling, and mock combats. Though they use their weapons to entertain, they are also highly trained and skilled warriors in their own right. Their talent with their weapons inspires many blades to lead double lives. One blade might use a circus troupe as cover for nefarious deeds such as assassination, robbery, or blackmail. Other blades strike at the wicked, bringing justice to bear against the cruel and powerful. Most troops are happy to accept a blade's talent for the excitement it adds to a performance. But few entertainers fully trust a blade in their ranks. Blades who abandon their lives as entertainers have often run into trouble that makes maintaining their secret activities impossible. A blade caught stealing or engaging in vigilante justice is too great a liability for most troops. With their weapon skills and magic, these blades either take up work as enforcers for thieves' guilds or strike out on their own as adventurers. When you take this college at 3rd level, you get a couple of bonus proficiencies. You gain proficiency with medium armor and the scimitar. If you're proficient with a simple or martial melee weapon, you can use it as a spellcasting focus for your bard spells. So this is a fairly simple feature that helps you be a slight bit more durable in combat. Medium armor is nice as it can help you get your AC up a bit. The scimitars are fun for flavor, but don't really unlock too much in the way of mechanical viability. Bards are already proficient in short swords, which are mechanically identical to scimitars, except they deal piercing instead of slashing damage. This can be relevant if you are thinking of taking either the piercer or the slasher feats from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, though I would argue that piercer is actually a better feat anyways. If you're interested in a deep dive into those two feats, as well as ranking all the others from Tasha's, I'll link a video up above there. That being said, scimitars are cool, and it is nice that if you multiclass into Bard from another class, you gain a relevant proficiency from this feature. You can also use your proficient weapons as a spellcasting foci with this feature, which is pretty nice, as you don't have to worry about non-costed material components taking up a hand slot. That being said, you have to worry about somatic components still, which is very relevant to swords bards that want to dual wield. If you want to dual wield and cast spells with somatic components, you'll need the Warcaster feat. I give this feature a 4 out of 5. Very useful to the subclass viability, but there isn't a whole lot of added value other than enabling the class to function. Next is the fighting style. At 3rd level, you adopt a particular style of fighting as your specialty. Choose one of the following options. You can't take a fighting style more than once, even if you later get to choose again. Dueling. When you are wielding a melee weapon in one hand and no other weapons, you gain a +2 bonus to damage rolls with that weapon. 2-weapon fighting. When you engage in 2-weapon fighting, you can add your ability modifier to the damage of the second attack. So here we begin to decide what kind of swords bar you are going to be. One who wields a single high damage weapon, like the rapier, or a bard who is wielding 2 smaller weapons, like short swords or scimitars. Both are very solid options with their own pros and cons. Dueling bards are going to have an easier time casting spells with somatic components, as their offhand will likely be free unless you multiclass to get a shield proficiency. Not needing a feat to enable your spell slinger fighter combo is really nice, but you do sacrifice a bit of damage output and hit chances, especially before you get extra attack. Assuming a 16 dexterity score, you're going to do an average damage of 9.5 per attack with your rapier. That is 4.5 average from the 1d8 of your rapier, plus 3 from your dex mod, and plus 2 from dueling. And you'll still have your bonus action free to cast Healing Word or give out your bardic inspiration. 2 scimitar bards with the 2-weapon fighting style, on the other hand, will be dealing an average of 13 damage per round. That is an action of 3.5 average damage from the 1d6 of your scimitar plus the 3 from your dex mod, and then you also have a bonus action to do it all over again, totaling for 13 damage. Nearly 4 more damage and an extra chance to hit if you miss seems like a no-brainer, until you remember you don't have your bonus action to give out inspiration or to cast a spell. Things get further interesting when we get to 6th level and get extra attack, and the Rapier Bard actually begins to catch up a bit. But we'll talk about that when we get to our extra attack feature. Next up, also when you take this archetype, you also get Blade Flourish. At 3rd level, you learn to conduct impressive displays of martial prowess and speed. Whenever you take the attack action on your turn, your walking speed increases to 10 feet until the end of turn. And if a weapon attack that you make as part of this action hits a creature, you can use one of the following Blade Flourish options of your choice. You can use only one Blade Flourish option per turn. We will go through each of these flourishes one by one and talk about their viability and their usefulness. But first, getting a free 10 feet of movement when you take the attack action is pretty nice for maneuverability, which is a huge boon to a class that is not very durable in combat. Additionally, it is really nice that you declare a flourish on a hit, so there is no risk of losing a Bardic Inspiration use on an attack that ends up missing. Our first flourish option is Defensive Flourish. You can expend one use of your Bardic Inspiration to cause the weapon to deal an extra damage to the target you hit. Damage equals the number you roll on the Bardic Inspiration die. You also add the number rolled to your AC until the start of your next turn. Okay, so we're off to a pretty strong start here. Your Bardic Inspiration die starts at a d6, so the ceiling when you get this feature is a +6 to AC until your next turn. This means a Sword Bard with medium armor and a 14 dex score will have a 21 AC for a turn, which is pretty cool. By the end of your Bard career, your Inspiration die is going to increase to a d12, meaning that the ceiling for the same Bard at level 17 is 28, and that's not even considering magical armor. However, the floor is the same for both of these Bards. Just getting a +1 to AC and +1 to damage can feel pretty awful if you land a 1 on the die. If your DM is a known metagamer as well, I would avoid this one. If you land a really high AC, a metagamey DM might cause the creature not to even attack you, even if it makes sense that they would press the attack. Our next option is Slashing Flourish. You can expend one use of your Bardic Inspiration to cause the weapon to deal extra damage to the target you hit and to any other creature of your choice that you can see within 5 feet of you. The damage equals the number you roll on the Bardic Inspiration die. Once again, we see that your Bardic Inspiration is added to the damage, which is nice, but additionally, you can spread that damage to any number of other creatures that are within 5 feet of you. Doing extra damage is super nice, and the only downside is that it is spread between multiple enemies. Spreading damage is not nearly as good as spike damage most of the time in 5e, unless you are fighting a bunch of minions with 3 or less hit points. But if you can get a large number of enemies around you, it is definitely a good flourish. Most of the time, I'd use Defensive Flourish over this, however. But if you're looking for raw damage output and you have 2 or more eligible targets within 5 feet of you, it is definitely worth it. Lastly, we have Mobile Flourish. You can expend one use of your Bardic Inspiration to cause the weapon to deal extra damage to the target you hit. The damage equals the number you roll on the Bardic Inspiration die. You can also push the target up to 5 feet away from you, plus a number of feet equal to the number you roll on the die. You can then immediately use your reaction to move up to your walking speed to an unoccupied space within 5 feet of the target. Okay, so once again we get to deal damage. However, now we also get to push a creature away from us. This is situational, but I like it a lot. Battlefield maneuvering is one of those things that makes the tactical aspect of combat really fun. Setting up a flank or pushing enemies off the ledge can be really cool, cinematic moments. I really enjoy that you get to follow through with the push. It can feel really bad when a feature allows you to push creatures out of your reach and you no longer threaten them with opportunity attacks. Something interesting to note is that there is no size stipulation here. So you can be shoving a Tarrasque or the Mother of Dragons herself with this feature. Another weird quirk with this feature is that the movement doesn't have to be in a straight line when it comes to following the creature. So if you push the creature down a spiral staircase or down a ladder, you can move up to your walking speed to face them, which is a bit silly. All in all, I see myself using the defensive and even the slashing flourish more than the mobile flourish, but the good news is you don't have to choose between them. As long as you have a use of inspiration, you can use whatever feature is most suitable to the situation at hand, which I wish there was more options and maybe a little bit more creativity thrown in there, but I think that the flourishes do complement each other well. However, and I think this is a big however, I really don't think that they're all that powerful. Bards aren't supposed to be high damage per round characters, but the utility and the small damage given from these flourishes doesn't make up for the fact that they eat your bardic inspiration die, in my opinion. I give this feature a 3 out of 5 due to the limitations and missed opportunities I mentioned. Before we move on to our next feature, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for getting this far in the video. If you have gained any value from it thus far and you'd like to see more of the content that we do here, please consider subscribing. It helps out the channel a lot. And if not, that is totally okay. Thank you for watching anyway. Our next feature is Extra Attack. Starting at 6th level, you can attack twice instead of once, whenever you take the attack action on your turn. This feature is wonderful to have on any character trying to output damage, and the Swords Bard certainly makes a strong effort to do so. It does hurt quite a bit that you're getting this at 6th level instead of 5th level like most other classes that get it, but at the end of the day, you're a full caster and you just got 3rd level spells at level 5, so it doesn't hurt that much. Let us compare the two Swords Bard and the Rapier Bard like we did earlier on in the video, now that we have this extra attack feature. Using the same breakdown we did earlier, now the Rapier Bard gets a total damage output of 19 damage, which is the same as the 9.5 damage calculation we did earlier, but now you just get to do it twice. Whereas the 2-weapon Fighter Bard is outputting 19.5 damage. At this point, 0.5 damage is definitely not worth your bonus action. If you're looking at it purely mechanically, I would go with the Rapier Dueling Bard, which I don't think is most people's impulsive pick. I give Extra Attack a 4 out of 5 due to its conflict with your spellcasting ability, especially if you're taking cantrips like Booming Blade through racial abilities, feats, or multiclassing. Something that I am sure I'm going to see in the comments is, while the 2-weapon Fighting Bard has more opportunities to get their flourishes off, but if we take a look at the Flourish feature, that is tied to the attacks made with your attack action. So both the Rapier Bard and the 2-weapon Fighting Bard are using the same amount of flourish opportunities, even though the 2-weapon Fighting Bard does have an extra attack with their bonus action. They can't use that bonus action attack to get a flourish off. Alright, our last feature is called Master's Flourish. Starting at 14th level, whenever you use a Blade Flourish option, you can roll a d6 and use it instead of expending a Bardic Inspiration die. So this ability is actually really cool. Even if you run out of inspiration, you can keep doing your flourishes, which is really nice. The main downside here is that you're using a d6 rather than the d10 that you would use if you expended inspiration at this level. Though I think this balances itself out pretty nicely. I give this ability a 4 out of 5. I am a huge fan of doing your main class identifier all of the time, and this solves the problem of sharing your Bardic Inspiration pool. The only problem I have with it is it comes a little too late. Overall, I really like the Sword Bard. You maintain your full caster status while still being able to do some melee shenanigans that evokes a very unique spell sword feeling. However, the class, like many sellswords, is pulled in too many directions. When you use your flourishes at the expense of your inspiration die, you are losing support effectiveness for a little bit of damage and a little bit of combat maneuverability. And in most cases, that inspiration would be better used supporting your paladin who can hit with a devastating smite, or ensuring a rogue gets their sneak attack off. I also think there is a missed opportunity here in not adding more creative and effective and dynamic flourishes to the class. Do I think the Sword Bard is bad? I don't think so, but I do think it could be a lot better. Overall, I would give the Sword Bard a 3 out of 5. I would immensely recommend that if you go Swords Bard, you take a 1-level dip into Hexblade. That way you can use your Charisma for both spellcasting and melee. Also, you get the Booming Blade or Green Flame Blade cantrip. You get a short rest, 1st level spell slot, and you can wield a shield, which makes the Dueling Rapier Bard the absolute clear winner. In most cases, if you are looking for pure effectiveness, I would argue that the Hexblade dip is pretty much the only way to go for this class. And I do think if that's the way you decide to go, it does push this subclass a little bit over the edge, and I would give it a 4 out of 5. So what do you think? Do you think I totally missed the mark here? Do you think the Swords Bard is better or even worse than I mentioned in this video? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you on your next short rest. I also wanted to give a super big shout out to those supporting me on Patreon. Those of local hero tier or higher are Robert Allen Klaus III and Painted Sky. Thank you so much.